Hello students. This next tutorial picks up in that same vein of really just accessing and understanding the visual representation of the interface. And we will in future lessons and future weeks dive even more deeply into some of the concepts we just touch on here. Remember last video I talked about these selects. Well, we'll have a whole lesson on how to use them and their purpose and their applicability. But as we get started and as you get familiar with Pro, I want you to just know what everything is, what these icons and these buttons are. And that way when you're playing around in the first week or so, if you want to sort of take the steps before we get to those lessons, you'll know what you're clicking on. So we left off at map, and I'll walk through some of the next ones. If map lets you explore the map, the world, the universe that you are in, insert is how you create new universes, right? My universe here is Philadelphia, where I'm dragging in some data to talk about Philly. But the nice thing about Pro is you don't have to just have one map. You could have 5 or 10 going on at the same time, right? That you jump between to assess in different ways. And so if you wanted to do a new map, you could come here and do a new map. And there you go. It's totally blank to begin with. You can drag data in here and make it not blank if you want. But you're looking at a different world than your first map. And perhaps, you will then click on the contents and you will call it, my second map. And that is how you have 2 maps. So let's go back to my first map. I'm going to come back to layout in a quick second. The other ones, we won't focus too much on reports or notebooks. Toolboxes towards the end of the year when we get into something called Model Builder and how you customize your own tools. And we won't focus on some of these until we get into the sort of interface with ArcGIS Online and others. But I do want to talk about these real quick. Adding a folder and connecting to a geodatabase, another concept that, probably sounds like nonsense words right now, but will make more sense in the coming weeks. This just allows you to replicate what we did with our right click here. Right? I right-clicked on the folders and I said add a folder connection. If I right-clicked on the database, I could add a database. The same thing will happen with these. Right? I can add a database, a concept that doesn't make sense yet, but that will eventually. I could add a folder to take data from. It's the same concept. I'm just building a link between Arc Pro and the data in Catalog. Something that we'll explore, as I mentioned, in greater depth when we have the video on catalog and data structures. The last thing I want to show is layout. I'll have a whole video on how to use layout, but let me show you what it is. Layout is the ability to become the map maker. Remember last video I said that we're kind of flying in the world, right? I mean, I could zoom out, or did I zoom in like an idiot? And then I go to map. What have I done? What have you done, Shay? I'll go to map and zoom out to the world here. I hopefully it won't take terribly long. But sometimes it can be a little slow. So I've zoomed out and I view the whole world, right? There's nowhere else to go. I'm really like starting in space and then I zoom into the world. I mean, we're in it. We're a bird. We're a ship. We're flying around in our universe and we're exploring it. But we are also map makers. We are here to make maps, some of which we will share online, as we'll learn in some weeks, some of which we may want to share and create a PDF or that we may want to print. And the first step to getting there is here. It's in layout. All right, so this is where I'm stepping back from the world, and maybe I'm treating the map that I'm creating more as a piece of a graphic that will go on a piece of paper that ultimately creates a map or some sort of design or something. And we don't need to go through all the different layouts you want. Right? If you don't want it to be 8 by 5 by 11, if you have your own size in mind, you could come to custom page size. Something we'll look at in the layout video. But let's pick letter. And there I am. It's a piece of paper. Now, nothing is here yet on the piece of paper. I actually need to click here on layout to do it. But you'll see that when I'm here, it's like my map wants to do something. This thing called select is highlighted. And I'll dive into more of what this means in another video, but just to explore, just start drawing something. Right? You're almost drawing an image on a piece of paper. And once it's drawn, whoop, not what I wanted to do, sorry. Go to my layout. Aha, I had the wrong thing. First thing I need to do is I need to come to the insert, and I need to insert the map frame. That was me being stupid. Sorry, guys. So if I create map frame, and maybe I'll choose, I don't know, the best view in the world, right? We like the best view in the world. It's my first map, so I'll click on that. Apologies for getting confused there. My muscle memory is back on track. Begin to drag this now. And instead of nothing appearing, the world will appear. And now on my piece of paper, on my layout, I've built a portal through which to view the world that links up to this map. And I maybe will add some content down here, some words and such and such and such. We do not need to get into this now. As I said, we'll have a whole focus on this when we get to our weeks where we're talking about visualizing and displaying data and such. But I just want you to be aware that you don't have to only be in the map. You can also sort of create these layouts. I don't need it anymore, so I'm going to get rid of the layout. It goes away. Notice you could do the same thing with the maps, right? If you didn't want a map, you could pop that away too. Which brings me back here to my first map. That's insert, right? I don't really need to worry too much about the layer templates until we get into later videos about how we change the color or the style or the way our map looks. That's the real important thing about insert. It's how you make new maps, new universes. It's another way to create linkages to your data, and it's a way to make paper-based maps, a way to take away from your map and become the map designer, right? The one who's making the PDF or the printable map. Analysis, I'll just sort of run through now because we'll have a whole 6 to 10 weeks on the different analytic methods. But this is just where we store the different ways to analyze our data, right? And many of this will appear as nonsense words now, but in future weeks we will become expert at understanding the various ways that we analyze and play with our data. Now, view is sort of a way that helps you sort of understand and visualize what you're seeing here. I also think of it as a way that, like, if you screw up, like, whoops, I got rid of my contents. Where are my contents? I could come up here and say, oh, here are my contents. And they'll come right back. It just allows you to see the various windows that allow you to access more information here. Right, I click on geoprocessing. Makes no sense yet, but this is how I would engage with my toolbars. Don't need to spend a lot of time here. For me, it's really a way to see the various windows that allow you to focus on data. I'm not going to click on edit or imagery yet. Those I'll get to, I think, next week when we talk about geographic data and how we create geographic data and decide where it's supposed to be in the world. But these are what allow you to sort of take nothing and make something from it, or more often, take a piece of data that you're working with and edit it up so that it changes its orientation or its shape. So the last thing I'll show before I end this video, and we'll dive into sort of some data structures over here, is this last sort of big toolbar to focus on. And let me just pause right quick. I know that there are more toolbars here, but notice that those shift depending on what I click on. Right? When I clicked on that, my data frame, there's nothing. When I clicked on the base map, just the word layer and appearance clicks up. When I click on the grouping stuff layer, the layer appearance comes up. When I click on that, the feature layer comes up. When I click on the canvas base map, a red layer appearance. Anytime you see those shaded elements, it means that it's responding to the piece of data or the analysis or the process that you're using. I clicked on a shapefile. I clicked on a layer, and therefore there are options for what I can do with that piece of data. In that next video, when we talk through data structures and show you what each of these things mean, I'll show you these toolbars so you can understand what they're helping you accomplish. But let's finish this video just with a quick run through of the share. This will make a large part of a future week when we start to engage with ArcGIS online. But really, this is what allows you to do, I think 3 main things. The first is package everything up, right? So if you have created maps and you've brought data in that you're using and you've built your own toolbox or you've created the way something looks, you could package it all up together in a project and you could share it with somebody, and then when they access it, they've got everything. Because we'll see in the video on data structures and referred to in class regularly, because we're creating linkages to data on a computer. You saw me navigate in that video into my desktop, and then I picked this folder. That folder doesn't exist on your computer, right? I need a way, if I want you to see this map, you're going to need to have access to that piece of data, right? Packaging your stuff allows you to do that. Sharing as can be thought of as the way that you move online. So if I like what I've done and I want to create a live web map, I'll go to Web Map. If I want to take just one piece of data and put it on my ArcGIS Online account, I would go to Web Layer. And we won't do this yet, but this is how, in the same way we'll have a video that talks through the layout, of a whole video talking through how you move to a dynamic web-based platform. And the last thing that I think are sort of interesting here is really, we can save the map if we want and open it up, or we can save this as a project template if we like it and we want it to always come back up. But I think a really interesting one here is export. We won't do it here. We'd probably do this more frequently on the layout, right? The actual map maker's map. But this is how you would export something so that it becomes a PDF, or export something to take it into Illustrator and play around with it. So concepts that'll become more familiar when we play around with that layout video that I'll load when we are ready for it. So that's the basics, right, of how you move through these various tabs and what all of the information represents. Some of it we didn't even dive into at all. Some of it we'll dive more into in greater detail. But if you're just getting started, these videos will help you at least see what the words and the orientation means. The next video, I'll dive a little bit more into what's going on here, right? These pieces of data that have just sort of existed right now to help me show you the orientation and the layout of this map. But the next video, I'll actually walk through what they mean. What's the difference between this point and this square? How do I change their color and their size and what's said about them? How do I understand what part of them is their geography, the G, and what part of them is their information, the I?